But guys, yeah, say hi to YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and hit the bell, fellas. But yeah, guys, welcome. Today we're gonna be doing Uno 101 guide. It's a super fun character. He has sort of like a dulsome counter zoning playstyle where he has, his far-ranging normals. He has ways to mix up his offense. He has ways to mix up his defense. He has ways to bait out anti-airs. Really cool character. Definitely a unique style. I'd say like he's most similar to maybe Parry in this game, but he has better defense than Parry, but worse offense. He doesn't really have the set play Parry does, and their neutral games are pretty dissimilar too, right? So who should play Uno? He's a really good character if you're just learning the game, or you want like a secondary character with minimal time investment. He's really based very heavily on neutral and doesn't require a lot of execution. So if you're looking for maybe a counter pick character, for example, I think Uno would be a really good choice. If you're someone that likes to play really patient and frustrate your opponent, I think Uno is very good. I've definitely gotten more timeouts with Uno than almost any other character I've played, and is someone that if you excel at making really good reads on opponents' neutral and offensive tendencies, EX counter is obviously a very good option for that if you can make the read, and Parry is a very high risk, high reward option. And I think what will separate the average Uno players from the godlike ones is being able to use his Parry, his 5U, to maximize off the opponent's mistakes or the opponent's predictability. Some of his pros: he has great anti-zoning, great reversal, long normals. He has anti-airs, to bait out the opponent's anti-air. But he does have some subpar anti-airs, poor conversion. He also has some poor damage off some of his combos, and he has poor, I say, linear offense. He doesn't really have options to extend pressure very well, outside of situational things like his install or 63 heavy special. But I do go more in depth into this, so if you guys want to take a look, I posted a Uno guide or Uno overview earlier. Definitely check that out if you want more of a general feel for how this character should be played. So let's go over his special moves, right? So his 236X series is kind of I call it the anti-zoning god tool. I think this move is super good. Basically, his late version, it's about 22 frames, so it is reactable, so the opponent can dodge or block on reaction, but it beats a lot of moves that the opponent has to commit to. So for example, if the opponent throws a fireball or the opponent's just whiffing normals, you can kind of space it out like a very high reward fireball, right? Compared to most fireballs in the game, you might get less damage and you don't get a knockdown, right? You get a knockdown from this. It's good for frame traps. So for example, if the opponent is mashing after a 5H or your auto combo. So for example, after 5H, one of the best ways to catch their mashing is just go into the 236 series. It's safe on block, and on hit you get a knockdown, right? The M version, it's not really as good as the late version. It's more of when you've conditioned them to block the late version, you can do the M version to kind of get more frame advantage. Doing something like this and then doing the late version after that can kind of trick people into committing to do something when they actually shouldn't. The other use for this is some people will try to dodge or roll after the 236L, expecting the 236L will come, and the 236M can punish that. So for example, this block string right here, that was 2M into 236M. If I roll this, I get punished, and you get a knockdown off of that. Actually, after 236M, you can get a combo off the counter hit, which is pretty cool. And then the H version is your combo ender. So sometimes you'll use it after a 5H, get right into EX, or sometimes auto combo or auto combo in the corner. Those are all times you're going to use 236H, but you don't really use it for neutral. It's only 2 frames quicker, so it's unless you're in a situation where you don't really want to use it that much, then you can kind of burn the EX. The one important thing to get down is you always want to option select the hit. So the way you do that is, let me turn on button inputs. So you see how my button hits there? If I only hit the L button once, I don't actually get the knockdown. What you should always do is hit it twice. So if you do 236 LL, or I literally hit it 5 times so I don't miss it, you always get the knockdown. And on whiff, it's the same thing. There's actually no disadvantage to doing it, so you shouldn't be trying to hit confirm it. You should just always mash L afterwards and you always get the knockdown. So his 2-2X counter. I think this counter is actually, I thought this counter was trash at first. It's actually really good. So the light and medium version are frame free. I honestly don't think the light and medium version are that great. If Anre or Uno does the medium version, you can dodge on reaction and get a punish on it. It's also a lot more unsafe, and it's only frame 3 invul. So not really that useful. The heavy version is mainly the one you're going to be using though. It's frame 1 invul. So if you compare it to someone like Lil Wayne's counter, Lil Wayne, if you trigger the counter, you can dodge and you can get a punish. Anre's counter, if you hit it, you cannot do anything afterwards. You cannot cancel in the super. You can't cancel the dodge. You have to take that counter no matter what. And the good thing is, like, because you have to take that counter no matter what, you don't really have a safe way to pressure him on wake up, which makes him really strong on wake up. When you're scared of the EX counter, that means you either have to throw him on wake up or you have to do like a delayed normal, and there's some other things we'll get into, but they all lose to stuff like mashing, or they all lose to stuff like mashing universal overhead. So it lets you be very disrespectful on wake up if your opponent is predicting the counter. So definitely make sure you play around with that, and having really good reads on the counter is going to make you a really good Uno player. The 214X series is his spin. Think of it as like a combo filler. You don't really use it too much in neutral. 214L series is good for far width punishes. So take for example like this range. You can't really get much. You can't go on the EXDP. You can only really get super, but you can also get 214L. So I mean that's not very much for like a far width punish, but unfortunately that's all this character gets. You know, get that little bit extra damage and it's better than nothing, right? 214M, I think it's its best mid-screen auto combo ender. So sometimes you go into like auto combo, you end in that way you get the most frame advantage. And 214H is generally your corner combos. We'll go over corner combos later. The one cool thing about it in neutral though is if you throw it out from like here or like anywhere here, it's safe on block. Actually all of these are safe on block, and you get a combo afterwards on hit. So you're throwing out a safe on block move that gives you a full combo on hit. That's pretty good. Doesn't even matter if the move looks a little bit weird. I think it's pretty good just to like kind of frame trap with in the corner, or just to kind of throw out in the corner, because your reward on it is so high and it's pretty low risk. This move also has a jump version. It's pretty good actually. The light version is minus on hit. I actually don't think you should ever use the light version. You don't get a combo from it, and it doesn't really stall your air momentum much, so you're likely to just get hit by 2H anyways. The medium version is pretty good. It stalls your momentum a lot, right? So like if they're trying to 2H, so take for example, I try to 2H this, I get hit. The other cool thing is you get a combo off of this. And you have a couple different options. I personally think you should do either crouch late stand light EX DP or crouch late into late DP. So something like this. Oh god. If it crosses up like that, you don't get a combo. And keep in mind, the combo from this is actually pretty tough, because as you guys will see, like depending on the number of hits they get and the character's height, you'll either get like 3 hits or 4 hits, and it's not really hit confirmable. So you kind of have to memorize like how many hits it's going to be at a certain distance. See like how that was 3 hits, but previously it was 4 hits. Okay, so you get something like that. It's pretty good, right? The other thing is you can get EX afterwards too. I didn't believe there. So pretty good damage off of baiting anti-air, right? And EX is the same thing, it's just faster, and it's actually, I think it's plus a little bit more on block. So I actually think EX is +1 on block from my testing. So generally I think this is the best version. I think it's also a little bit more consistent to combo from too. I typically do the EX version. It's even really good from like an up back. So if you're like trying to fuzzy jump out, which is pretty good with Uno because there's a lot of command grab characters and people try to throw you a lot because of EX counter, you can react to a throw, and if you see them throwing, you just do EX back in. It's not really the biggest issue if you waste your 214X cooldown, because it's not that good in neutral and you have other things for combos. So don't be afraid to just throw out the EX version of the air or grounded version. They're both really good. They have both pretty good reward. Don't mind just checking it out. All right, so the last special he has is a 63 special. It's interesting, right? It's a spear spin and it has 4 different follow-ups and they're all actually pretty useful, right? So it's definitely something you need to learn. 623L, it's good for block strings, neutral, using follow-ups. The one thing is like you can do it in neutral and kind of just throw that out there. And the cool thing is you can kind of run behind it. So like you get a little bit of frame advantage. You can grab some space. So it's really good if they're like just kind of hanging back or like they're trying to play the full screen game for whatever reason. You can just kind of throw this out and kind of walk behind it, get some frame advantage on that, see what they do. The other cool thing is, let me show you against the actual fireball character. So if Gran throws a fireball, what you can do is you have several options against fireballs, but one of the better ones I think is you can react with his light DP. And you have to do it a little bit early. And you can follow up and counter with your own fireball, or you can counter with your own other special, right? So if you want to catch them off guard, you can do the H version. If you want to don't think they're going to do anything, you can follow up with the U version. So you have several different options to cancel that fireball with and kind of mix up with your follow-up option. It's really good for canceling the fireball. So another cool thing is you can block string with 623L. So you can do something like this, and that's safe on block, right? So if you just want to push them out. The other cool thing is if you do the light version, which is this fireball, you can actually delay it so it's a frame trap. So it's his main way of beating people that mash afterwards. So if you do have to delay it manually, but you can get a little bit of chip. And then once you recognize they're not mashing, you can actually mix up stuff like the U follow-up if they're not reacting. So you can do stuff like this and grab them, or you can go for extended block string or something like that. The other thing is like the medium version of the medium follow-up of the 63L, mainly just used for combos. You don't want to do it. It's actually punishable on block, so you definitely don't want to frame trap with it. But again, if you just get a hit and after auto combo, let's say your other cooldowns are down, you can do 63 light into medium. The heavy version, yeah, again, the heavy follow-up of this, it's pretty good because on counter hit you get a wall bounce. So if they're just like throwing out shit in neutral, or like they're expecting you to dash forward, so they're preemptively hitting a button or something, you can get actually really good damage off this. Let me see if I can find like something optimal. That wasn't optimal. Actually, I think optimal probably doesn't have the EXDP. The EXDP actually has like more juggle points. It uses up more of your juggle points, unfortunately, than the EX spin. But something like this does like a ton of damage and it's super easy. Yeah. So 6.5k just for getting hit by a YOLO ice cart. And actually, at the right range, it's safe too. So that you see how he's yellow there? Yellow means it's actually safe. So it's actually pretty safe to throw out just randomly as long as you're at the right spacing. The medium version of the 63X series is kind of goes up. It's good for like anti-air combos. It's actually good as like an anti-air by itself. So you see how it crushes there. Unfortunately, the reward you get off of it's not the best, but it's a good situational anti-air for some stuff that might be a little hard to anti-air with, like a 2H or whatnot. It only combos on standing too, so take for example, I'll show you what it looks like in crouching. If you auto combo into this, it just whiffs, so generally against grounded opponents you're going to do the 623L. It is pretty good at like this range, so like if you're really nice, you confirm they're standing and you don't want to use EX, you can do something like this. And again, not the best damage, but it is a slight optimization on not having to use the EX. But the EX version, it basically takes the best of both worlds of the light and media version. It's really good. It combos from far 5L. It also always wall bounces in the corner, even not on counter hit. So generally his best starter is off of that. The other interesting thing is you can actually hit confirm off of the EX version. So if you see they get hit by that, I guess again it's like 8 hits or something crazy. I'll put it on random block. You can always go into a follow-up and get a full combo. So it's a really important skill to learn with them. So his normals aren't, I won't say they're not anything to write home about, but there's nothing too like fancy about it. He does have a few key normals that I think we should go over. His 2M and 5M are really good for space control. And I say that because they go far. So this goes a lot further than your average 2M or 5M. The 2M does go a little bit further, but is a little bit slower. So if you want something that's more of like a checking them situation, you're afraid they're going to jump or they're afraid they're going to do like some type of low profile move, obviously use 5M. But in general, I like doing 2M in neutral just because it reaches a little bit further. The important thing is that they both combo into 236L on counter hit. So on non-counter hit, looks like something like this, does not combo. On counter hit, you get 2K, which is really strong. And it's probably going to be one of your main moves in neutral, just buffering 2M into 236L. Keep in mind that 2M actually beats roll too, which is really good. So if they're trying to like roll past your 236L series, you can just kind of throw this out there. And it's on counter hits, so they take 2K for it. His 5 heavy is hit confirmable for advancing special. And it low crushes. It's kind of OD. I don't even know where to start with this. So it's 2 hits. This is what his FAR 5H looks like. So it means you can always hit confirm it. In my opinion, you want to hit confirm it into his 236H. So it looks something like that. 2300 damage, you get a combo. It does not combo into the late version, but the late version can frame trap. So let's say they're mashing after that. Right. The late version will counter hit. It's really strong options just to kind of check them for doing that sort of stuff. A couple other options you have after 5H is his 623 is a true block string. For some reason, okay, there's actually like a weird glitch with this move. If you don't input it properly, or like you don't input it like at the right time, his 5H into 623L will come out as 236L, which thankfully is not the worst thing. But if you don't like delay your input properly, you're gonna get 236L like you just saw, which is really weird. I don't know if it's like a glitch or something. Hopefully like they patch it out, but just something you have to be aware of. Either do the easy input so it never screws up, or just do the input late so you can get it consistently. But you can do something like that. That's all safe. You don't have to end in the light fireball version. You get additional, you know, you can kind of mix up your options, kind of like what we talked about before. The other option you have is 5H. If you confirm it if you're close to the corner, you don't want to confirm it into 236H. You want to confirm it into 623H because again, your reward is a lot better. You get way more damage. You can also hit confirm in the super. That's probably one of the best ways you can get super. Make sure you do the true input so you get the sweet spot. And 4,500 just for throwing out a random 5H. That's pretty good, guys. Not gonna lie. Oh, let me show you guys how 5H load crushes. I'm gonna have Grand do sweep. You guys know Grand sweep's actually ridiculous. 7 frame startup. He just goes right over it. Does not care about your Grand sweep whatsoever. But yeah, if they're doing a lot of like low hitting moves like a 2U or some like 2Ms or that sort of thing, 5H is a really good option against that. The other key normal that you guys should keep in mind is this 2U. Very similar to Lance's sweep. I think Lance's sweep is slightly better. I think this one has slightly longer range, but doesn't really low profile. But yeah, from like here, it's safe and it knocks down. Definitely, if you see your opponent walking back and forth in neutral a lot, trying to you know, make your 236L series or your 5H or 2M whiff, 2U is your best option there. All right, so let's talk about the coolest thing about this character. So think of the parry as like a high risk, high reward counter. It has 5 string startup, so you definitely do not want to mash it on your wake up or block strings because most people are going to do a meaty or whatnot if they think you're going to be mashing, etc. EX counter is for those situations. This is mainly for in neutral or in the opponent's block strings. If you know something is coming and it has a long gap, think of towards the end of their block string. It's also really good in neutral to react to a certain move. Let's say like a Charlotta ball or a Beelzebub dive. You can't cancel fireballs and you can't act after them a little more quickly. So parrying a fireball is pretty good too. But generally you want to be looking to parry normals or parry special moves. The frame advantage is really interesting how it works. So you can act immediately after the parry. The opponent can act after remaining active frames plus recovery frames. So what does that mean? I'm gonna break out the spreadsheet for this. All right, so let's look at Grant. All right, so take for example, so if you guys have not seen this, this is what we call frame data, right? And frame data determines how quickly something starts up, how active it is, how much recovery it has. So take for example a 5L here, right? So close L means basically a close 5L. It has 5 frames startup, 3 frames active, 6 frames recovery, which means it lasts a total of 14 frames. What I'm trying to say is if you parry with Anre, it will parry on the first active frame. So after the first active frame, you have 2 remaining active frames left and you have 6 recovery frames, which means in total, you have 8 frames to punish whatever they do, unless they cancel into something. But in general, most cancels are slower than 8 frames. So what this means is, let's say he blocks after it, you have 8 frames as Uno to punish. You should be able to punish with anything less than a 8 frame startup, 5L, 5M, or 2L, right? So let's test out our theory. So I'm gonna have Gran do 5L and then block. And you see how that's a punish, right? Let's try 5M. That's a punish. So his 5H is 11 frames. Let's see if that punishes. See how he can block? So that's generally what you want to be looking for. Generally, light normals are punishable by mediums. But take, for example, let's say it's a far L, right? Grant's far 5L has, oh god, so he has 15 frames of recovery. So you could pretty much punish with a far 5M here. In practice, it's typically not counter hit. It's because I have counter hit on. But unfortunately, you don't get much. You can do something like a 2M into spin. You get 1500 there. You can do 2M into something like super. You get pretty decent damage. But you guys get the idea. If you're gonna do it against the normal, try to figure out what your punish is. But generally, if it's a light normal, you get a medium. If it's a medium or heavy normal or a special, you get pretty much whatever you want. One thing you can do, so take for example, if you react to the moves in neutral, let's say you react into boot. Again, you get a full combo for parrying that. So as you guys can see, parry is super high reward, but it does take some risk because if you mistime your parry or you react to the wrong thing, you whiff your parry, you get punished, right? All right, so if you're parrying a multi-hitted move, you have to parry both hits. You can also like cancel on the super and you will get a punish here. That's pretty hard to react to, right? So generally you want to parry both hits and then go for the punch. That's kind of the one caveat. The one other thing to keep in mind, and I have to switch to Anre, is you can't actually dodge after parry. It's very similar to Luane's counter, but instead of the can follow-up from Luane's counter, you can do whatever you want, but it has less hit stop. This means that you can react with dodge in theory, but it's very hard because it has less hit stop. So let me show you guys. So I can react with dodge. I reacted with dodge. Well, I dodged, but I can't do it on reaction. I think heavy normals, you can do it on reaction, in my opinion. But the unfortunate thing about this, so you can dodge, but you might still get punished, depending on what they decide to follow up with. All right, so let's talk about combos. He actually doesn't have too many combos. This is pretty simple. If you are mid-screen, your preferred auto combo, in my opinion, is 214M. Just because you get the most frame advantage and you can kind of run up and get an easier meaty that way. There's a couple optimizations you can do. So for example, on crouch, you can do auto combo into 623L, 6H, which gets you a little more damage, a little more corner carry. You can also do EX spin, DP, or 236H. They're all good options. In my opinion, 236H and EX spin are probably better than EX DP. So something like this gets you a little more advantage. You get a hard knockdown, which means you can time your meaty 2L better to bait their DP. It also means that you do get slightly more damage. So if you're trying to close out a round, it can be a good option. Cool setup, by the way, if you want to do EX spin mid-screen. If you do empty jump, do a 2L, that's actually a safe meaty. So definitely something to consider. You might be sacrificing a little bit of damage or a cooldown, but you can get the auto time 2L afterwards. And it's very easy because literally all you do is hold up forward. Another really useful combo you guys should learn is 2L, 2L, 5L, 623H, and the 6H. So at this range, you can get 63L, but like if you don't have a running start, the 63L will kind of whiff like that. So you have to do 63. 623H, and then always just go into the H version. It does more damage, gives you more corner carry. In the corner, your preferred starter is your 623H. And you basically do 623H into 5M into spin, 5H into 236H into your sweep. And the cool thing about this is if you do it right, you get your cooldowns back, so you can actually just loop the combo. Your other option is you can go for 5H super instead of 5H into the 236H. There's some other variations, but basically it's if you start with spin instead, you can get like a 5mm into fireball into sweep. You can also do you can switch the order of the specials, so you can do 214H, 5M, into that, into something like that. That is a little bit harder, and also you don't get to sleep afterwards, so generally you want to start with the 623H instead. Anti-air combo's pretty easy. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have that many good options for anti-air, but generally you just want to do 2H into 623H into 6H. That's about as good as it's gonna get. Mid-screen, you can do 623M, so you get something like that. You can also do this follow-up as well. Another stable option is 214M if you don't have that cooldown available. Does a little bit less damage, less corner carry, less Oki, but it is the option. The cool thing about this, though, is that you don't have to confirm counter hit or normal. This works perfectly okay on non-counter hit jump-ins. So in the corner, it's pretty much the same thing. Except you do get a wall bounce from the 63H, 6H, so you can extend your combo with whatever you want, right? Other than that, that's pretty much all he has for combos. His Oki is very basic. Again, pretty much on the knockdown, you either want to do a safe 2L or safe jump. And then once they start respecting that, they're not DPing, then you go, just do your typical strike throw mix up, right? So you can do delayed 2L, you can do a throw, you can do a delayed throw, you can do a universal overhead. Same basic Oki game that most of the cast plays, right? Supers, so we're talking about super theory a little bit. Generally you want to buffer it from his normals, so something like a 2M in the super, like if you just see them roll and you don't want to or they're just walking forward, you see them walk forward, cancel in the super, either super works and you get damage. Generally if you have SSBA, use the SSBA. If you only have SBA, you can use SBA, but keep in mind the SBA does do a little less damage. See, it's about 1k difference right there. So obviously use the SSBA when you can. You can also combo off of 2H. So this is a really good time, if you get something like this, because again, his anti-air conversions aren't the best. Something like that is 2k more than his normal anti-air. SSBA is really good anti-fireball too. So you can actually react to Uno's 2368L. And if you react, you can react to something like this. And you just got 3.5k for reacting to a fireball, so it's a really good tool for stopping things in neutral like that. Doesn't work just against his fireball, but pretty much any fireball in the game you can react with his super skybound art. So let's talk about install. So the install looks way more difficult than it actually is. So the only thing it does is that when you press the M button or H button, you get a little extra hit, and all that really extra hit does, it lets you combo from new stuff and it lets you get more frame advantage. A lot of people are comparing to Minot super, very complex supers like that, but it's really easy. You can literally master install in 10 minutes. But here's when I think you should do install. So generally, because his super is a big source of damage, it lets you convert off pokes that you normally can't otherwise convert off of. I think generally if you're at a life deficit and the opponent has a lot of health, you generally want to keep your supers just for that big burst damage, right? Because it's so good off of a poke or a 5H and to win the game or something like that. I think there are a couple of situations where you can use install though. One situation is if you have the life lead, a pretty significant life lead, and you want to close out the round, you could do something like this combo that we showed earlier. And then you can just kind of go into pressure, right? If you go into super at the very end of that combo, you only get 400 more damage. That's not really worth it, right? So you might as well take the install, and go for that additional pressure, go for that additional mix-up. It's obviously better against characters with bad defensive options. Against characters with bad defensive option, you can just kind of do that for free and then mix in a throw and get some free damage that way. The other thing I think it's good is like you can just activate a neutral, and it's really good for closing out a round, right? Like if any hit's gonna kill them, there's no point in keeping super unless they have like a fireball or something. So you might as well just activate and get more frame advantage on your normals, right? It does do chip, so it can chip kill as well. It's a really good option. Some of the things that this does for you: 2M into 236L combos now on normal hit. So you don't have to worry about getting a counter hit anymore. You can combo after 5M. So you can do stuff like that. After 5H, you can actually just link a 5M or a 5L or whatever you want after that. I think you get 5M. Yeah, you get a 5M after that. Other than that, you don't really get much. I do want to talk about how to fight this character though. A couple things that I've noticed that people do not punish or that people do not deal with correctly. C counter is probably one of the most annoying things about this matchup. All right, so I put the dummy to do C counter on wake up, right? So obviously if you just do a meaty 5L, like it works against pretty much all the rest of the cast, does not work against this character, right? So what options do you have? Most people think, oh, I'll just throw him. Throw does work, but again, throws are risky in this game. If the Uno player is doing jump into 214X, or they're doing a mash, or they're doing universal overhead on wake up, those all lose, right? So you need to mix up your options on how you bait the counter on wake up. So some other things you can do. You can do something like a universal overhead on wake up. They take a ton of damage because it's counter hit stage. You do have to time it so it's a little bit delayed. But yeah, they take a crap ton of damage if you do it right. The other thing is you can just delay a normal if you want. Neutral jump's an option, so you can just neutral jump on their wake up. Also seconds as a throw bait too. The other thing you can do, you can just block or you can just shimmy them, right? You act like you're going for the throw, back up, this is punishable on block. Make sure you punish with a medium, not a heavy, because it is not heavy punishable on block. 2M into 336L, this tool is really oppressive, as we kind of talked about in the guide. It can be rolled or jump, but it's not punishable by either. But there are some things that can beat it, right? So some fast normals can beat this. You can actually 2M into 236L. If you're playing Ladiva, you can sweep in between that because it's a fast enough normal when it hits the startup of his 236L. This will work too. You could, like, this is obviously close, but there is a big enough gap that you can hit in between it. Another cool thing you can do is some characters have air specials, right? So in the Uno mirror match, actually there is one way to punish it, and you can do an instant air dive or instant 2U. Yeah, so that was a punish, right? So at some ranges it does work. Other characters like Zeta can do this a lot easier because they have a better jump move. You can obviously super in between. That's always an option. So definitely, you know, look for the icon, right? And you can actually react to this. Yeah, so it's reactable. You can roll it. It's not punishable, but you do have frame advantage after you roll it, so that is an option. The one issue with rolling it though is that if they do 2M and 236M, you get punished, and you don't want that, right? The other thing is after you block the 236L, you're plus. So go in, press your advantage, either poke them out or do something else. Make sure that you make them pay for doing the 236L. One other thing to keep in mind, I actually didn't show this in the guide, but if you jump after, they can't anti-air with a 2H, but they can anti-air with a counter. So be careful about that if they have the counter up. The other thing that people might not know, after the late version of the counter, here, I'll set them to jump after. So you see, you barely have any frame advantage. It looks like it's like about +1. You can definitely press your advantage after. Don't let him get away with a run up grab or something like that. He's also 0 after 214L on hit. So something like this, you barely have any frame advantage. See, you're gonna clash after. And I'm actually losing if I do my 2L. make sure you challenge them after, especially if you have like a 5-frame normal. If you have a really strong normal, like a Lancelot normal or a Narmaya normal, you can always pretty much mash after both these options. Same thing after the Air 214X series. 214A is always minus. You always want to mash after that. 214M and heavy on block, they're about 0. So you see how I clashed there. EX is about +1 in my estimate, but it's very hard to time, so I timed it there, but because of the variable number of hits, it can be hard to time, so it's really good to mash after that too. I think just jumping at him in general is a really strong option, right? He doesn't have anything like a DP to beat anything that can alter his jump arc. So take for example in the mirror match, something like this is pretty annoying to deal with. And he doesn't really have ways to beat it other than like going up and air throwing or that sort of thing. Or delaying their 2H, which is obviously pretty risky. He doesn't have very good like far normals for anti-airing too, so if you jump at like this range, well, Uno's jumps are pretty much trash, but if you jump at this range, you can't really like anti-air you here like other characters can. 2M shouldn't work here. Yeah, 2M doesn't work. 5H doesn't work. The only thing you can really do is like a super. I mean, even then it's like not the best range. There, it works pretty well. So if you want to play the empty jump game against him, that's a really good option too. The other thing is like, in order to deal with this move here, you can react to the dash follow up. You can react to it in like 3 frames of delay. All right, let's see if I can react at 4 frames of delay, guys. All right, then press the button there. All right, that's 4 frames of delay. I can react to the dash. I mean, if you could do it in 4 frames of delay, you could pretty much do it against anyone online. The other thing you can do is you can just like do a delayed mash too. And you could do like a delayed 5M or something. Or if they cancel the fireball, you'll just block it. Okay. But you see how I did the fireball there and my normal didn't come out? Even if they delay it, if you delay your normal enough, it will beat both options. The only thing they can really do is something like this to beat it. So you can do something like this. Okay, well you showed me the right option. But you see how I traded there, right? After doing my delayed normal. Characters with like faster normals like a UL 5M or most characters with decent 5Ms or 2Ms, they'll actually win there, right? But yeah, other than that, I guess I'll look at chat again. Uno's the worst fairy. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think fairy is really good. I think Uno's probably lower on the tier list than fairy, but I think Uno has some better matchups against some characters than fairy does. I'm not sure what those matchups are, but they're pretty different in some regards. Uno's a better Matera. I mean, come on, guys. They're different characters. That's a really hard comparison to make. You know, for more information, you know, definitely check out the hashtag on Twitter. People are still posting this stuff. This character's still pretty new. Follow, subscribe to the channel, of course. I'm gonna be playing this character still. In the USA, MBK has a really good Uno, so definitely check out his Twitch. The link's here. I also saw Taichi play Uno, probably the most impressive Japanese Uno I've seen. So definitely check out Taichi. You could probably find them on like Granblue Versus Fan or any other YouTube channels that show replays. But yeah, guys, I hope you appreciated the guide. If you like any comments or anything else you want to share, please leave in the comments below. And if you appreciate this content, please consider subscribing. Appreciate your time watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Guys, keep in the DMs. Not in the guide. Not in the guide, bro. Kaz, Rasta, keep in the guide. I don't even know what happened. Bro, guys, I'm gonna time out the whole chat if you guys start some shit during the guide. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know what happened. Yeah, I feel bad for my editor too.